Thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or those who are in the process of overcoming a life event. We have three objectives with this podcast series. We want everyone to know that they are not alone in whatever life experience they are encountering, that we will work with you to help you overcome anything that you are encountering. No matter what the difficulty is, we want to be here to help you through the situation. Our second objective is to help you develop the resolve that there are multiple solutions, multiple options with any life encounter that you are enduring. And while it may be difficult to think that way, it is absolute truth that when we think into and think through a life situation, we can determine multiple solutions to whatever it is you're encountering. Our third objective is to help you develop critical thinking skills. If you're in a situation that is a result of a decision you made sometime earlier in life, and if there were an opportunity to have a life redo, you would make a different decision, we want to help you develop the skills that are needed to analyze all of the facts and factors in making a very informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty. Together, we are the Cooper Culture, and the Cooper Culture is sponsoring this podcast series. Today, we feature Matt Koroncai. He has a very different type of life experience, having started at a very young age with drugs, but there are some identifying reasons. Marty, what are some takeaways that our listeners can gain from Matt's testimony?
Ron, Matt talked about this empty feeling that he would have, and the empty feeling caused him to feel like he couldn't talk to anybody. He didn't have any friends, not upbeat at all. But the drugs took all that away, and he felt like that just relieved a lot of anxiety and helped him talk to people, helped him feel like he had friends and he could exist in life.
So there were several combinations with Matt. He had a big brother who was both a positive and a negative influence. He did not feel accepted. He was uncertain if his father liked him. Several factors that led Matt into a life of dependency on drugs, and it's a very intriguing story. At young age, third grade, barely 10 years old, when he got his start, but he's now on the positive side, 6 years sober, and he's helping others to either avoid or to recover from an addictive life. Let's listen together to Matt's story and see what we can learn from this, and can we glean from Matt's past life and experience to help others avoid or overcome a life of dependency. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. Our listeners are going to be very intrigued with a little bit of your background. Our focus is on today and forward, but you have overcome a lot in your life. To help our listeners just have an appreciation of what you have overcome, can you just briefly explain where you have been in life, some of the challenges that you have endured that led you into addiction? And we want to put a focus on today and forward, but I think we can learn a lot from your past. Thank you again for joining us.
Absolutely. Yeah, so my addiction started at a very young age. I was in third grade the first time I started smoking weed. As a child that young, I don't even know if I can identify in certain things that would make me want to feel like go towards that route. I remember I had an older brother who was also sober, and I looked up to him. I thought he was the greatest thing in the world, and I remember I knew he was doing certain things, and I wanted to fit in. Wanted him to accept me from a young age always, and I thought if I did what he did, that would make that happen, and in turn it worked against me. I remember very clearly, me trying to explain to him as this third grade kid, hey, I'm doing what you're doing, and he looked at me like, man, how do you even know what that is? I remember getting in trouble. I got in trouble in 5th grade. My parents found out. My dad gave me the same look and asked me the same question. Man, how do you even know what this is? And he's looking at me like my baby boy is doing something that he shouldn't have any idea about yet in life. For me, my addiction progressed long and hard. Had all through middle school. It was pretty innocent still. I mean, again, I was young and nothing more than smoking weed and drinking. And as I got a little older, me and my brother got a little closer. He progressed onto some harder things. We started doing some things to make money, to support our habits. And I remember just the progression starting, especially I get into high school, pills come into play, and they're easy to sell. It's easy to make money. You can make a lot of money. You can definitely support your habit. And things get bad, you get really dependent. It comes a point where you can't wake up without it. You can't do anything without it. And, you'll survive and get by any means. That means stealing from people, robbing the ones that that love you regardless. At the end of the day, they have no choice but to love you, and they always will. And come from a good background of a family. I didn't see it that way at first, not till journey through the 12 steps, but it was a long time where I was an ignorant kid, and I believe my father hated me because, he wanted me to go to college and get a good job and life, and thought because I couldn't sell drugs and get high in this man's house, so he must not love me. I mean, these are the types of things I would tell myself, and who's loved to be the victim for a long time, get in trouble for taking money from these people, and tell them I got a problem, and I would go to rehab, and I would get out, and I wouldn't learn nothing. I'd try to pay attention and try to see it, and just the truth is I just wasn't ready. I wasn't willing to fully surrender. I didn't think I totally had a problem. And then me and my brother got into some trouble, big trouble, and he went away for a little while, and I dodged a little bit of a bullet. I did not get the same type of consequence he did. I was still in trouble, but did not get the same type of consequence he did. I remember when I was waiting to go to court, I was still deep in my addiction, still active in my addiction, and he came home from jail, and he looked different and lived different. I remember real specifically sitting in my room one day, and I'm high, and I'm listening. I can hear him. We were living at my dad's house at the time, and he's down on the porch, and he's made some new friends, and he's so happy, and he's laughing. And remember, he would come into my room and try to tell me, like, man, you can have anything in the world. You got to get off and stop doing what you're doing. And I remember thinking, like, man, how could you betray me like that? This was our thing. So many words. I would let him know, just leave me and my drugs in peace, and you go do what you do. And at that point, I ran out of people to start stealing from, and my addiction got into heroin. At this point, I was on probation. I had gone through a nonviolent offenders program to where I got put on probation for about 5 years and using for about half of it. And I would always I'd be worried about faking my PO and scamming my tests, my routine drug tests. And one time this is right at the end for me, and I remember, I was dying, bro. I was dying on the inside, and I didn't even know what that meant yet. But I remember for a little while I was praying every night, not believing God until I was in trouble, and I knew I was in trouble. And I remember asking, man, I please let this be the last time. And I remember every night I'd go to bed and I'd tell myself it is the last time. I'll never do this again. And going to bed passed out on heroin, and I knew I didn't want to live that way. I knew it wasn't right. I was miserable. I had nobody. The closest people in my life were there, but at the same time, I just had no relationship with them. I had no emotional connection to them. And I remember this one night I prayed to God, and I asked God, please either A, take my life, or B, back me into a corner that I can't get out of, because I don't want to live this way anymore. I woke up, did not take my life. I woke up the next day, but my probation officer showed up randomly and sat me down and had me take a drug test. Told her if I take that thing, I'm going to fail it. She at first offers me to go to rehab, and I had been to rehab about 3 times already. Told her I can't afford it. She's like, okay, then you're going to have to go to jail. And I tried to spin it back around because that's what at least an addict like myself does. I tried to spin it back around, tell her, well, hold on, let me try to figure it out. And God bless that lady because she was tough and she was not having it. And she was like, no, you're going to have to report to Bucks County. And started my journey for me. I, again, didn't know it at the time. I was home for the day, and my brother was working from home, and he had to drop me off at the prison. And I remember looking at him on the way there, and I was crying. And I'm looking at him like, man, how did you get it? Like, I think I'm going to die using. I don't think I'm supposed to be sober because at this point in my life, I had tried quite a few times, and it was not working. And the truth was, I look back on it now. It wasn't that it wasn't working. I wasn't working it. I wasn't willing to do certain things I had to do, I was supposed to do to try to live a different life. Again, I did what fit best for Matt. And I went into Bucks County Prison. I was not there for a long time, but it was enough to have a moment of clarity. I remember I think it was the 3rd or 4th day I was there. I'd been withdrawing off of heroin, and I finally felt like I could breathe a little bit. I wasn't so anxious, and I wasn't hurting so bad. It was getting a little better, and I remember sitting there one morning, and we were on lockdown. The bottom half of the block was, and I remember looking out my cell door, and I'm watching these people run around, and there's all these people in there, and they just look so comfortable, a lot of them. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, if you are lucky, you are going to die using, and you won't have to deal with this ever again. And if you're unlucky, this is what your life's going to continue to be. And I remember keeping that thought the entire time I spent there. I started going to meetings while I was there, and I just came out with a different sense of surrender. Ron, I came out for the first time. I was willing to listen to somebody. My journey through recovery kind of starts from there. All before that, I was not willing to listen to a single person. I thought I knew best, and it just kept getting me into worse and worse situations.
5 or so factors come into mind, Matt, as I'm listening to what you're saying, and I want you to tell me if this is an accurate assimilation of what you said, not necessarily in any order of priority, but at an early age, and it's just stunning to me to think that you're barely 10 years old, you allowed some overpowering factors take control of your life. As I listened to what you just said, some of those overpowering factors seem to be a need to be accepted, the need for relationships. You were uncertain where you fit in, let's say, friendships. You were uncertain if your dad even liked you, it seems, and maybe you longed for a relationship with your dad that you did not have. Those things, Matt, as I'm listening to what you're saying, seem to be overpowering factors in your life at a very early age, and you felt the need to overcome those inadequacies, and drugs and alcohol helped you through that period of your life. Did I assimilate what you said correctly?
That is absolutely correct. That feeling of emptiness, I didn't even know what it was at the time, but there was just something missing inside, and drugs and alcohol took all that away from me. I didn't feel none of it. I was okay to be by myself. I was okay to be with other people. Either way, I was okay. That is what drugs and alcohol did for me.
I have heard some others say, Matt, who are in a similar situation, I just want to die. The situation is such an overpowering dilemma that some people literally just want to die because they're so deep into this and they're so dependent on that they don't know how to get out of it. Were you in a very similar situation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was doing things, Ron, that I would never do. Never as a sober, productive member of society, I would never do. And nothing more, right? Sometimes you'll hear people come in and act like they were the toughest thing and go in their addiction. And, like, to me, I thoroughly believe that, like, I was a coward, and I, again, would rob and steal from people I knew that would love me regardless. So, yes, again, every fiber in my being thought, I did not have a problem and I could stop this whenever I wanted. When time and time again I'd fail at that, I just could not see a different life without it. I truly believed I thought I was going to die by the time I was 25 years old, and I was, after a while, just kind of at peace with it.
I want to address the before you ever got started part of your life, and this may be a very unfair question. I acknowledge that because it's too difficult to maybe project what things could have been at maybe 9, 8, 7 years old or so. But let me try to have you look back only for a brief period, but I think it could be very useful to our listeners. If we were in the presence of another Matt Koroncai, meaning we are with a person who we believe or a person who has expressed a need to belong. They're not sure where they fit. They feel very insecure, inadequate, maybe a low self-confidence, and those kinds of things. They haven't engaged in anything illicit yet, but if I or somebody who could develop a very trusted relationship were to engage in that person's life to where we could maybe effectively mentor them and we could develop a very trusting relationship. Matt, I'm going to ask you to try to reflect on your life. If somebody had been involved at that early stage in your life, is there a possibility you could have avoided the drug dependency that you had to go through?
That's a good question, Ron. It's kind of hard to say. It's almost like asking like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Good question. No, I am not sure. I don't want to sit and say yes. I don't want to sit and say no. I'm not sure. I came. Again, the truth is, I came from a good family. I mean, we weren't perfect, but what family is? We had things we struggled with. Addiction does not run in my family. For us, it's just me and my brother. I got a younger sister who, again, had her own things, but for the most part did everything right in her life, quote unquote, normal, and can have that one drink, stop there, and that's a good question, and one to tell you the truth, I am not sure how to answer. I definitely don't think anything hurts to try, but at the same time, it wasn't like that age anything was getting pushed on me. I still do at times have this need to be accepted and want to be accepted, and I'm 6 years into sobriety to be able to even grasp that as a child. I would say for sure, why not? But at the same time, I just, without coming from that type of background, again, I think maybe a little different when parents are deep in addiction, so this is all you know. Just mine wasn't like that. I was brought up like, had clothes, I had lunch for school, I was put into like different types of sports, and I still found my way there, Ron. So just without trying to speak on something I'm really not sure of, that is probably the best way I can answer that question.
I appreciate your honesty and candor with that, Matt. And I think what we can conclude from your life is that there's certainly nothing negative in wanting to and striving to have a very trusted relationship with people, to become engaged in their life. We want to be careful that we do not, what I call, cross the line of stigmatizing or labeling. However, if we can just identify those potential factors that may be a leading indicator of your propensity to become involved with those overpowering factors you described, there's nothing negative about that. Just choose to engage in people's life. But Matt, let me turn it to, I think one of the overarching factors you mentioned was, even in your state of dependency or being overcome with the drug dependency, you had a need for people. You just wanted to know that there would be someone on the other side waiting for you, that you may not have consciously said it, but it seems you may have been thinking, don't give up on me. I just need to know you'll be with me to help me through this. And you may not have had those conscious thoughts, but For us listeners who are consummate outsiders, never having been involved in drugs, I think what you're saying, Matt, is just stay with me. Stay with me however long it takes and help me through this. Is there at least something implicit like that you endured?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the time I had to call my dad and tell him I am going to jail. And I remember he said real clearly to me, do us all a favor and just don't come home. I love you, but at the same time, I have my own life, and we all have our own lives we have to worry about. We can't consistently keep worrying about you. And I'd say I deserve that. He wasn't trying to be mean. He wasn't trying to be harsh. He was just being honest and real. I had a girlfriend at the time all this was happening too, and I remember she was done with me. She was, again, didn't have the same type of things going on that I had. She was in school trying to make a life for herself, and I was doing nothing but dragging these people down, not intentionally, but literally through a power substance that gave me no choice. Again, the human power could not overcome. These people tried to show me love, and they did show me love, and just drugs and alcohol outweighed all that. That was my master for a while. Even today, I still have that. I still have times where I watch myself with that. I actually even just recently got out of a relationship with somebody I tried to make it work with for a long time, and too long, in fact, and no matter how many times you question certain things like that, and there's a what I can tell myself in my own head, and then a reality of a situation. And the truth is, Ron, if I am okay, if Matt is okay with himself and accepts himself for who he is, and then also gets to develop this relationship with God as he understands him, truth is I can be okay no matter who is not here.
Thank you for your candor, Matt. Yes, relationships, Marty and I do address in a separate format what a toxic relationship can be, and we need to be able to identify that and separate ourselves from those relationships that are toxic. Matt, can you take us through that point? And first off, congratulations on 6 years of being free and continue, and that's very inspirational to others who may have the propensity to go the route that you did. But was there let's say, a rock bottom, an exact turning point in your life that said, I cannot continue doing what I'm doing, and that was the turning point that led to your recovery?
Absolutely. That was when I left jail. I knew that I did not want to go back. At this point, I had nothing. I had no more fight left in me. I came out with my hands up. I thought I knew better time and time again, and my situation kept getting worse. And when I left jail, my probation officer at the time said, you're going to have to go to a recovery house. My parents weren't letting me come home, and that was it. And I to this recovery house, I went from sleeping in this nice place my dad lived in. I had my own room. I went to a recovery house, got sat in a 4-man bedroom. I'm sleeping with 4 grown men. I'm on a top bunk, 27 guys in this house, and all in the same spot I am, and just trying to get their life together. And I was there for a little while, and at the time I was in a different fellowship. I was actually going to Narcotics Anonymous. They do things one way that, for sure, because I have friends in there that work for some people, it just was not what I needed. I remember I went to this house for about 3 months at the time. I was starting to feel it again. I was starting to get the urge again, and I knew it was coming, but I knew I didn't want to go back. Somebody there had asked me to go to an AA meeting, and I do want to be clear that this is just my story. I am in AA. That was what I chose, and that was where God led me. That has continued to work for me. But at the same time, I am just speaking on my story. I don't stand for either one. I go to this AA meeting, and I was just real honest I shared on the floor, told all these people, it was a big meeting. There was probably 100 people there, and I told all these people there that I was scared to death, and I felt like I wanted to go back out and knew my time was coming, and I really needed help, and I asked. when I was half in tears. My life was low at this point. Again, my family wasn't talking to me for the most part, and girlfriend definitely wasn't talking to me. I didn't really have anybody but these guys in this house, and you try to support everybody, and I was so grateful for all of them. And I go and I share at this meeting. This guy approaches me after. Out of everybody at this meeting, this one guy approaches me, and I actually happen to know him. I used to work for him. And we had a previous relationship, and funny enough, I actually did not like this guy, and he knew that. Still came up anyway, and he said, "Matt, I relate to you. I've been where you've been. I felt what you felt, and if it's okay with you, I'd love to take you through the 12 steps." At the time, again, just being a human being, my ego was still there, and I told him I was going to see who else was there. Nobody else asked me but him, and I was hurting, Ron, still. So I go home, and I call this guy up, and I said, fine, let's do this. And I was the guy who was just coming from not being able to put the drug down for anything, and then robbing anybody and anyone to do what I needed to do to be okay. And this guy came and met with me once a week, every week, until we had gotten through the 12 steps. And funny enough, he looked like there was nowhere in the world he'd rather be than sitting right there with me. And at that point in my life, I felt like I wasn't worth nobody's time. I could not understand that because, again, he knew that I did not like this man, and I didn't like him, but he was okay with that. He knew that we were going to develop this relationship. He just knew something I didn't know at the time.
That is huge, Matt.
Yeah.
What I take from what you just said is you had a person come into your life, and this person, without using these words, said, I believe in you, Matt. I care for you, Matt. I'm willing to invest in you to help you overcome, but I believe in you, Matt. Even though you didn't like him, he had a belief in you, and he was willing to invest his life in you. That's the type of engagement, Matt, to which I'm referring. Let's, those of us listening to this podcast, engage in other people's life. We can and will have an impact.
That's correct.
So, Matt, let's take it to a final level. For those listeners, those of us who feel that, yes, we do want to get engaged with people. We do want to help stem what in some communities is almost an epidemic of drug and alcohol dependency. What is a call to action you can suggest to us that for those of us who want to become involved, where do we start, Matt? For those who are very inquisitive, I'd like to get involved, but I don't even know where to start.
Okay, so I know how to go about this. Are we talking somebody who's involved in addiction, or are we talking just somebody who's a normal person but wants to help anyway?
Let's talk about the person who is an outsider like Marty and I are, that we have a burden in our heart to help people either avoid what you've been through or, on the other side, help them live a better life to get reintegrated into the workforce. But take it from the viewpoint of an outsider, Matt.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys ever heard of Naranon, but have alcoholic and drug addicted meetings for the families of people who might have a son or a father or a mother or daughter who's addicted in some type of way, and usually have their own fellowship that they can go through and steps that they can work through and outside perspective on the things that they might not understand, but they try to teach what's going on with them. A lot of times people don't know how to handle it. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to parents of somebody who might be addicted or have something going on in their life, and they think they know the best course as to go about it, and they think if I just, for lack of a better way of putting it, maybe this person, they're going to be okay. And sometimes it's not always the case. Sometimes you're enabling somebody, and I think there needs to be this stern understanding of what they actually have going on. For example, Ron, I remember my probation officer asked me this question one time, and she said, why do you keep doing what you're doing? You come from a good family, you have the whole world at your fingertips, and you keep throwing it away. What is the issue? And it was such a good question because it stumped me, and I always had an answer for this lady, and I didn't know how to answer it, and I told her very simply, like, I don't know. I'm like, honestly, I don't know. And that wasn't good enough for her, and for whatever reason, I never forgot it, and I remember when I found out as to going through my steps, what I actually suffer from is a disease that's centered in my mind that makes me selfish and self-centered to the core. I remember learning this, right? And I remember it popped back into my head, and I thought to myself, man, if I ever see this woman again, I'm going to tell her exactly why I keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, it wasn't by choice. It was just naturally what my body will always resort to. I find something, again, in terms of spirituality to put in its place. So in terms of being able to help somebody from the outside or being able to prevent, I think to be able to be aware or understand a little more certain behaviors that might be happening at a young age, things that might be able to be pointed out and then guided in a different way. I think sometimes that could definitely be the best action. But again, like being able to understand where somebody's at to the best of your ability without ever having to have experienced it, sometimes that in and of itself can help, because the truth is, Ron, is I don't know if it's possible to save anybody. I think all you can do is give somebody some information. I think people are people, and they do have the free will. But to be able to give somebody that information that they never understood, because, again, that was what happened to me, through the explanation sponsor at the time had given me, I was able to go about a little differently, because, again, before I never knew what was actually going on. So I thought if I had all these different ideas of what I might be able to do, if I can just separate myself from people, places, and things, I'll be okay. But the truth is no matter where you go, there's always people, places, and things. I had to learn to live in a world to where everything is going to continue to go on, but I had to be okay being free. I don't know if that's clear, if that makes sense to you. I hope it does.
It does, Matt, and you've made us very aware of some of the things, and I want to be careful not to try to stereotype anyone, that everyone is an individual, and what happened to you may not be the same experience as with another person, but to engage in a person's life has every potential positive benefit. And you've been very aware, you've helped us with awareness that to always be with a person, but do be aware of some of the courses that are available. You are with Recovery Centers of America, and am I correct, Matt, that there are courses through the Recovery Centers of America for families to better understand how to work with those who are addicted?
That's absolutely correct. Yes, because even somebody being an alcoholic, you might come across somebody in your life that goes through something that you don't understand. Dealt with it. I know my brother Billy has dealt with it, and we need to do the same thing, to look for a different perspective. Even though I don't get it because I've never suffered from the same thing, I might be able to get some information, so at least whether I can or cannot do something about it, maybe I don't have to react in a way that naturally I want to.
Thank you for sharing. And for those in the audience who just feel a burden to help stem the epidemic of addiction in our respective neighborhoods, communities, there is a way we can effectively engage. We can learn about, through Recovery Centers of America and any place else, the 12 steps, Al-Anon, R-Anon, the various programs that are out there, to become aware. And there is a fine line, Matt, that you mentioned, of tough love and enabling, and we need to be very aware of that so that we can exercise the appropriate tough love and help a person through their stage of life. We know the difference between that tough love and enabling. And sometimes our heart compassion is we want to help this person through, but I think you might say by doing whatever, we could prolong their behavior.
That's correct, Ron. I just want to be clear that this is my experience, and that is what helped me. Again, I'll just say that I was very good at blaming people and playing a victim, and I knew how to play on certain people's heartstrings. And when that didn't work for me anymore and I had no choice but to sink or swim, that was when I really understood that, okay, if you actually want to stop living this way, you're going to have to go seek out that information and do what you have to do. It's time to grow up, and that is what helped me. I don't want to say it's the same experience for everybody, but at the same time, I do have a very good understanding of how an addict or an alcoholic acts in their active addiction and seen it work well with other people, but then I've seen times where they do get enabled and nothing good comes out of it, unfortunately. And sometimes that is the toughest part, especially when it's somebody close to your heart. I can share a quick story that I remember. I told you in the beginning that brother had actually gotten sober before I did. I remember he was, for a long time, he was trying to almost force it on me, and it just was not working. Was actually sending me farther and farther away from him. Eventually, I had my own course and came to terms with my addiction the way that I was supposed to. And there was a period where he had actually relapsed, called me one night and told me, and he says, like, I'm hurting, I don't know what to do. And simplest advice to him was, when you're ready to stop, why don't you come hang out with me and I'll show you a different way. And I got to lead by example from my older brother for once. I didn't have to tell him anything. I just lived the life that I was taught to do in AA by principle and integrity, and he was attracted to that. And from that point on is when he stayed sober.
Matt, thank you very much for sharing from the heart. And yes, there's no stereotypical profile. Everyone has their own individual reasons for a past life. And Matt, with you and any others, we certainly accept you. We want to help you and others take today and go forward and have a very productive life. Again, congratulations on 6 and many, many continuing years of being clean, and for your dedication to help others through or possibly even avoid what you have experienced. Thank you for sharing from the heart.
Thank you, sir. It was my pleasure.
Matt, great to have you with us, and we look forward to continuing awareness for others and to help others avoid what you have been through. But thank you again for sharing. What are your thoughts after listening to Matt's story? 10 years old, or just barely 10 years old, 3rd grade, starting in a life that he wishes that he had not started, but he felt compelled to do it, that he felt inadequate, he felt empty. And I wonder, is there a possibility, if we were to identify some people with the traits that Matt had and maybe some of the others who have made decisions earlier in life that they would not make today, can we help those identify early on? And again, we don't want to label or stigmatize anybody, but can we identify some leading traits such that if we were to engage early with these people, develop a very effective relationship, can we help them make better decisions and avoid the life that Matt led and some others have led? I'm very interested in your thoughts. Let's engage with each other. If you are a friend, a neighbor, a mom, dad, grandparent, of anyone who has overcome anything of the past, let's learn from each other. Let's engage and let's share some ideas. Call us at 410-586-1875 or send an email to ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, @thecooperculture.com. But let's engage with each other. Let's share each other's experience. Let's learn through our various experiences so that we can help others by reaching out and engaging with others. One of the things that Matt said very clearly is there is no stereotypical drug or alcohol abuser, that once they made a decision to engage in drugs or alcohol, it is a very customized, very individual effort to help them recover from that life and start a new life. But if we are working with each other, that we can learn from each other and help show the person who is engaged in a life that they would not otherwise want to be, that we can help them through that period of time and help them recover from and not return to that life, I believe, through a very effective relationship, perhaps a mentoring type of relationship. Marty and I have developed a digital relationship course where we emphasize personalities and learn how to identify people, adapt to them, and have a very effective relationship. The course that we have developed is for dating, leading to courtship, and into marriage and romance. We are developing a companion course for workplace relationships where we want to help everyone develop very effective relationships where we can adapt to and learn to communicate well with each other and develop trust. Those are the type relationships that are lasting. Those are the type relationships that are the ones that can help anyone through various life situations. But let's engage with each other. Let's learn through each other's life experiences, and let's choose to engage with other people so that we can help people make very good, informed decisions. We hope we can warrant a 5-star rating with this podcast and the others that we've produced, and we hope that we'll be able to engage with you and earn your respect for you to subscribe to this podcast series, and we look forward to engaging and learning from your life experience. Make comments and call us. Let's engage and learn from each other.